My name is Anne Sheahan. I'm the executive director for a program called the Vermont Talent Pipeline. It's part of the Vermont Business Roundtable. It sounds very exclusive, but the Vermont Talent Pipeline welcomes any business that's interested in participating in a workforce collaborative. So we actually have 3 collaboratives existing right now: construction, manufacturing, and healthcare. And we have a number of employers in the Northeast Kingdom and St. Johnsbury area that are already participating.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vin Favoroso. I am the coordinator of partner engagement and workforce development here at NVU. I was brought in to manage and project manage and coordinate the Learning and Working Community Initiative, which I'll get into once we begin this discussion. Nice to meet everyone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cindy Robillard. I work with the Vermont Department of Labor. I am the business services manager, and I support a team of individuals around the state that serve and seek to understand the needs of the business community and help them with recruitment, training, and retention. So nice to see everybody this morning.
Yes, good morning. Hugh Bradshaw. I'm one of 2 assistant directors in the Workforce Development Division. Jane Fortin, who many of you may know from the St. Johnsbury area, is my other assistant director. Jane covers mostly the field operations, and my purview is some of the training programs, the veterans program, tax credits, bonding fund, stuff like that. And certainly apprenticeship, which I'm sure we'll be discussing today, is also something that I've been supporting. So thanks for having us today. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you all for being here and for taking the time to be our panelists. So let's hear from each of you about what's going on in your area to address the workforce challenges in the Northeast Kingdom and maybe some other challenges that you've seen along the way.
Most people don't understand what talent pipeline management is. And I like to just say it's a set of strategies and web tools. It's really a project. And each one of these steps involves the employer at every level. So we organize employers who have a shared hiring need, really. And then we identify what the most critical jobs are and what the skill sets are required for those. We communicate those to the education community so that they can build their programs around it. And they're aligning their training so that when people come out of these programs, they're work ready. And that's what we call building the talent pipeline. After we have it built, we measure how we're doing, how many people are coming through it, time, cost, quality, those types of things. So the most important thing that you need to understand is that the employers are the center of this work. Collect a lot of data and we share it broadly with the community. Healthcare is definitely the biggest elephant in the room right now. Healthcare makes up about 18% of our economy. And I'm just going to say we need at least 1,100 healthcare workers up in the Northeast Kingdom in the next 2 years. And a significant number of those, about 270, are in the RN category. So you may have heard recently that there was an opening for a Vermont Tech nursing location up at NVU. And that's going to be really instrumental. They're going to be able to take on 60 new RN people to do the training up that way. So I'm pointing out this screen here just to say that the employers are at the middle of this work, and we're trying to help them with some of these connections here so that we're not duplicating work. We're always talking with the government agencies and regional workforce partners to make sure that the work that we're doing is well communicated. We could do a lot better at this. Our state is not well known for communication, but that's all part of the work. So right now we have in front of us a federal grant opportunity. It's called the Good Jobs Challenge. And the Good Jobs Challenge would bring in about $5 million to our state to do what we're doing already in a sector strategy, but to do it better. So if you were to ask me what the gaps are that exist today, I would say they really are in helping people with career navigation. What are the on-ramps to excellent careers and how do you grow in those? What are the wraparound services that are required for people to be successful in those, and how do we finance those programs. So as you can well imagine, the people who are in this panel are probably going to speak to a lot of these different things. But what we're hoping to do is invest in some of these systems so that we're doing a much better job at placing the people who want to be in excellent careers. So at the end, we're thinking there's going to be probably 4 to 6 different industries. We're looking to add information technology and STEM and digital technologies to our portfolio that exists already: construction, manufacturing, and healthcare. And we think that we're going to come up with, some pretty critical jobs, and we're going to be able to make some of those connections.
Sure, thank you, Tom. So as I mentioned, I'm working on the Learning and Working Community Initiative. This initiative was designed about a year ago from a steering committee to basically do what Marianne focuses on, which is building, increasing the quality of life in Vermont, lowering the average age of the Vermonter, lowering the cost of education for students, and just developing pathways to keep our students not only within the state, but to have a pathway to impactful experiential learning opportunities and hopefully careers upon graduation. So my objective in this role is to connect with and collaborate and partner with local businesses and organizations to create those pathways for students. We want to better connect the academia realm with the professional realm to better prepare our students for the workforce, and also to help out those local businesses that are suffering through those shortages. We all know that there are waves of retirements coming in Vermont. Vermont is on average an old state. So we want to try and help change the rhetoric on that. We are a higher education institution and we have a lot to offer. So we feel that it's in our best interest and our students' interest to be able to partner with these organizations, highlight those opportunities to attract those students, not only from within the state, but from from outside of the state, and to hopefully create a healthy pipeline to feed our workforce needs and also professional development and continuing education for the adult worker.
Really, it was part of a restructuring to put the spotlight and focus on Vermont businesses and have someone in a key position that could work with a team of individuals that are posted around the state through our resource center system to really develop an understanding. Well, first of all, develop some positive and trusting relationships with employers to do the work that both Marianne and Vin have discussed, and also to really understand what the true need is. We have been very active in putting out the message that we want employers to share their job postings with us. We need to know what your opportunities are, and to be able to get the word out about those opportunities to Vermonters. So that's been kind of the key cornerstone of the work that I'm doing, is to really re-energize the collecting of information to make sure that jobs are posted. They're posted in a way that they're attractive to Vermonters through our Vermont Job Link system. And then we've added some ways that we've been able to additionally promote those opportunities and shine the spotlight on really what's going on. So I feel like that box we can check. And then from there, I think what I did just want to mention, I know Hugh put a comment in the chat early on in the Lieutenant Governor's discussion about, helping businesses to think about the alternative populations of people that are out there and available right now in Vermont. We work closely with the relocation programs. I actually last week took a trip to Fort Drum, New York, to recruit soldiers that will be, leaving the military soon. So we're turning over every stone that we can think of to attract people to Vermont. But I think what Hugh's point was, and I think something that's really important to think about, is that there are underemployed people who may want the opportunities that we would like, that the businesses around Vermont are offering. And what do we need to get them there? And I think Marianne made a good point. We need to tell the story, and we need to market them well, which is one thing we're focused on. We need to offer them entry ramps. We need to offer them both the business and the individuals these sort of low risk entry ramps so that people can, try things, internships, work experiences, job shadows, all of that, which many businesses do and are doing really well, as a way to kind of just plant the seed and get the interest going and help individuals to really understand their pathway options. Some of those populations, obviously younger workers that have disconnected, that have kind of lost track of where they're headed, mature workers. Vin mentioned our aging workforce as a statistic that, we need to be mindful of. And then other populations, people that have been criminally involved or disabled. There are people there that really need to be empowered to see the opportunities that are available.
I think we forget that there are a lot of people living in our communities who really, with a little bit of support and some wraparound, as you mentioned, Mary Ann, can succeed and become that next great employee. So if we think about trends that we've been seeing and sort of best practices, first and foremost, I have to say, every time we're invited to one of these events, I worry that people think I'm going to pull up with a premier bus full of employees and just unload them in front of your business and fill all your jobs. Unfortunately, that's not the case. In fact, we're struggling getting people even into training programs right now. But there are some themes that we're seeing play out, one of which is employers are beginning to realize they have to grow their own talent. It's not going to come through the door. There's only so much stealing you can do from your other competitors from up the street by offering a little bit more wage, but that's diminishing returns when you get into those wage wars between different competitors. So we're definitely beginning to see employers think about, how do I bring somebody with low skills into my business, as you mentioned, Cindy, with some low barrier entry points, and then upskill them in my business. And that can happen a variety of ways. Apprenticeship is only one model. Things like internships and OJTs, which we can set up on the job training for individuals who are eligible for our services. We can set up an OJT with you where essentially we offset some of the cost of that initial wage for the first period of time, just to make sure that that's a good fit and that it's a match for both the employer and the employee. So there's a lot of creative ways to do this. But at the end of the day, what you need is businesses to step up and say, yes, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to invest the time and the resources into supporting individuals who may need some more support. And I think you also need to have people who are skilled in doing that. So we oftentimes see where this falls down is where somebody takes a great line worker who's a really good worker, does the job really well, and then they put them in a mentoring role with no instruction on how to be a good mentor or how to impart their knowledge to that new worker or how to give those skills to that new worker. And interestingly, CCV now, with some of their apprenticeships, they're actually offering a course for the mentors so that when the business goes into an apprenticeship, they actually have some support for the mentors, those on-site folks who are supporting the on-the-job experiences. So just when we talk about apprenticeship, the other thing that we're really beginning to focus on in Vermont, there's tremendous interest in apprenticeship. I can tell you that, both at the state level and also at the federal level. And we're going to see a ton of focus on apprenticeship with the infrastructure funding that's going to be coming to the states. These are all going to be wonderful, good paying jobs. But you have to build the programs. And in order to build out an apprenticeship, quite frankly, you need employers. It starts with employers. It has to have employers. You have to have employer sponsors, again, raising their hand and saying, yes, I'll take 2 apprentices and I'll assign an apprenticeship mentor to those 2 apprentices. We're really looking also at expanding apprenticeship into other occupations. So outside of the traditional trades, we have a very robust plumbing and electrical. We're having many conversations with construction, both home builders but also the AGC and other folks. There's tremendous interest in that. But we've also expanded into some sort of non-trades, non-traditional apprenticeship areas. Mary Ann, you mentioned we have a wonderful LNA to LPN pre-apprenticeship to apprenticeship at Central Vermont Hospital. That's just a shining example of how this can look. And that's taking lower skilled workers and moving them up into those higher skilled jobs, those RN jobs, which is or rather LPN jobs. So we also have just stood up a very interesting aircraft maintenance and power plant apprenticeship in partnership with VTC and Burlington Tech Center. We have a pharmacy tech apprenticeship. We have a bookkeeping apprenticeship that just got stood up with CCV. And then we also have a medical assisting apprenticeship that was started down at Brattleboro Hospital. It's really been successful. So these are all models that can be exported to your area. But again, I'm just going to reinforce, if you don't have a bunch of employers willing to stand up and say, yes, I'm going to support these apprentices, then apprenticeship may not be the model you're looking for. The other caution I would say is apprenticeship does have quite a bit of rigor and a lot of investment on the part of the employer and the employee. What you get at the end of a registered apprenticeship is a really well-trained employee that you know has those skills and they're verified all along the way. So built into apprenticeship, you have to have the apprenticeship businesses to be the sponsors. There are incremental wage increases built into it. And this is the other thing that I should have mentioned right from the very beginning. What is most needed in Vermont, regardless of rural areas or even in the highly populated areas, what's really most needed are those opportunities for folks to come into training at low cost, no cost, right? And so this was mentioned also. Things like tuition reimbursement, internal training programs, certifications that are paid for by the employer, ways for people to take college courses and not have to pay for them, but have them stack over time. And Marianne, a lot of the work that the pipeline folks are doing is around stackable credentials as well, right? So that's an important piece to this, is helping people understand that you don't have to go to you don't have to take out loans to go to college. You can go to college in many other ways. And all of these apprenticeships that we're building also are giving people college credit along the way. So if you go into electrical and plumbing, say you're in an electrical apprenticeship and you do well and you go out and you work in the field for a couple of years, but now you want to be an electrical engineer, all that coursework is still sitting there. All those credits are still sitting there at VTC, and you can step right into their electrical engineering coursework and get your degree in electrical engineering. So that's the beauty of apprenticeship. It's very closely tied to the related instruction. There's a lot of rigor, but it's a great program. Again, other things besides that are also sometimes really viable and much quicker. You can onboard people quicker through things like OJTs and work experiences and job shadows and things like that. And last but not least, I will say that young people have no clue about career ladders in your organization until you show them the ladders. So everyone thinks about that job and, oh no, I'm going to be stuck in that job the rest of my life, and no thank you, right? And the reality is, if you go in and you work hard, you can move up in any organization, regardless of what it is. You have opportunities to move up. But it's sometimes I think we forget to explain that and show that path to individuals, particularly young people. They need to understand what that looks like and what their future could look like if they work hard and keep learning. So with that, I'll step back.
Hugh, I was going to ask if I could just show a picture of a career ladder so people could get it, what we're talking about.
That would be great. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so this is a career ladder for nursing. And if it's a lot of detail, but what I want you to see is this first year of training is really like an entry-level career. So personal care aide, nurse assistant, or mental health technician, and they pay their short-term courses, 172 hours for this one, and it pays $14.77. These are 2020 averages. I'm just going to say everybody's salary has gone up because there's a shortage. But if you take these 14 health sciences credits at CCV, you can apply for this practical nurse program, which is what Hugh was talking about at Central Vermont Medical Center. And it's only 35 credits, but those 14 credits apply to it. So it's only 21 additional. And look at the salary here. It's almost $10 more an hour, $23.91. It's a 1-year program, right? And if you take that and you move it to the registered nurse level, it's another year. You can be making $36.22. That's the average for RN. Now I'm saying when I described the loan repayment model, we're having people working full time in these nurse assistant and mental health technician roles, and we're giving them release time for 2 classes per semester. So it's going to take them longer. So we're saying between years 1 and 4, they're going to get to this point, but they're going to be working full time, so they get paid.
And that's the key. That's the key of what I was trying to get to, is most people who are living on the edge financially already can't go off and take a 6-month course somewhere and not work. They've got bills. The bills keep rolling in. So anytime we can pay people and train them at the same time, so they're bringing home the paycheck, but they're also learning and bringing their skill levels up, that's a home run too. This is also a retention strategy on the back end. Believe me, employees know when you're investing in them and they appreciate it, and they'll stick with you. If you treat them right, they'll stick with you.
We have to focus on our current workforce that doesn't plan on retiring anytime soon. And we hope to work with the industry to connect our faculty to the entrepreneurs, business owners, GMs, anyone who runs HR professionals, so we can figure out what we can do to help with retention, employee retention. That is a huge issue, especially up in Vermont, because there's a lot of seasonal jobs. And I think that can have a huge impact on the economy up here sometimes. And just for example, we are hoping to cultivate, and we're currently working on right now, collaborating with the VSAA to find ways to offer some professional development, stackable credentials that work for them, identify their needs. That is comprised of all the resort areas up here. And though they all have a lot of similar issues and needs, there are some unique perspectives that some of these resorts have that we'd like to try to hone in on. That's just one example. And I hope in my role, I can connect with more industry leaders to identify those gaps, connect them with faculty. We do have funding available from our side to reassess, develop, or redevelop curriculum that we have to make sure our students are further prepared for the workforce. We are piloting this year career readiness modules through NACE, National Association of Colleges and Employers. They have developed modules that we are to implement or try to implement into our curriculum to better prepare our students. That encompasses emotional intelligence, soft skills, resume building, networking, any way to further prepare these students for the workforce. So when they get out there, they are more prepared than they ever were before. We are piloting it right now in our business program. It's going really well so far, and we hope at the end of this semester, we can kind of reevaluate the data to see how we can incorporate these in the rest of our curriculum, especially as we work to unify the VSE system. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of collaborating with Vermont Tech. I am on the unification workforce team for that, along with representatives from all the institutions here in VSE. And I'm hoping to better understand how all of the moving parts happen at these institutions, from Vermont Tech to Castleton to NVU, and then also how that's going to feed in from CCV as well. So this is a big beast that we're trying to tame here. And it's pretty exciting and scary at the same time, but it's really exciting to know that there are so many people in and committed to making this happen, to identify these gaps so we can work together for one common goal, and that's to help increase our workforce, better prepare our students that are graduating within the state to help meet those needs.
Yeah, so we've been doing these events for students of the technical programs with employers. Events where the employer would come on and talk about not openings in their company, but here's what it's like to work for our company. Here's how I got started in it. Here's what I did and how my job grew. This is why I love my job. Here's the type of thing that you would really enjoy about this work. So it was, instead of being like HR focused, it was really more of like, take a project manager or a young person who is now working in the field, who's really hosting a group of students to tell them, I started in the tech centers also, and here's what I did. And this is why this is an excellent career. And we had 10 of those in construction. And we invited all the tech centers to come, anyone who had a program anyway. And we did the same thing with STEM engineering and manufacturing for manufacturing companies, so that people could learn about what careers were like. And we actually have some pretty significant manufacturing apprenticeship programs that people were recruiting for. And those programs, you would basically get about 40 credits toward your associate's degree in engineering. So
I would just love to add to what Mary Ann said. One of the things that I will say is, in my years working with the Department of Labor, both secondary technical ed and adult technical ed have been really strong partners. And for one reason is they're nimble. They're able to respond to the needs of the community in a timely kind of way. And the best example I have is not something we're dealing with now, but I'll just, if we have a significant layoff in a community somewhere around the state, and it's clear that there's a need for some really specific upskilling for a body of workers that are now kind of in transition, we've always been able to call on our technical education centers and have them be able to, find instructors, develop curriculum, and move very quickly. So they're a really, really important cog in this kind of whole process. And I think you touched on it at the end, Marianne, it's not perfect. And some places it seems to churn along really well and relationships are strong. And in those places it's working really well. And so I think a goal moving forward, and I actually think in the Northeast Kingdom, it does work really well. I think we have strong relationships with both in the North and the South with our tech centers and adult education partners. But I think that, we could be a model potentially, and we can certainly make improvements. But the Department of Labor is really prepared to work with the students that are seeking adult education. And so I just wanted to say that I think it's a place for a lot of opportunity.
I was just going to say that the other thing that we're currently working on with the Agency of Education is developing a formalized registered pre-apprenticeship to registered apprenticeship model, so that an individual in a tech center who's getting that on-the-job experience and that related instruction, that can matriculate right into a registered apprenticeship. So essentially you come out of a tech school and you're already a year into your apprenticeship, or halfway through the first year, or whatever the case may be. So the devil's in the details, but we hope to bring that to all the tech centers in the spring and launch it probably next summer or fall, and really make it official. And what that would do essentially is, once we establish the model and get it all signed off on, then we can use WIOA funding, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is our federal workforce funding stream. We can use those dollars to support those pre-apprenticeships as well. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity to have young people experience an industry and an occupation, and then make some decisions, informed decisions, most importantly, about going into a registered apprenticeship when they feel that they're ready to do that. So I'm excited to develop that, but it's a little bit down the pipe. But I think that's exactly what we're talking about. When we talk about pipelines, that's another pipeline, is from the tech centers into registered apprenticeships, and then moving people into employment that way. So it's all good stuff.
At the adult school, we're really trying to create these career pathways for the non-traditional students. So you'll see in our new schedule of courses for the spring, we're going to start having EMT training at the adult school. So that's emergency medical technician. We're going to have a partnership to bring early childhood education, which is going to be NECLs and Northern Lights and us. And we're hoping that those students will get interested and involved and then matriculate into CCV. And we're working right now on creating an LNA to RN pathway with the adult school, CCV, NVU, NVRH, NCCC, all the acronyms. But please look out for those, and we love the idea of supporting these pathways for non-traditional, especially now a lot of people lost their careers or want to change their careers as part of the recovery. And so we look forward to working together to find opportunities to bring them up economically and improve the whole community. So I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah, one thing that Sandra just said, I want to just make a note here. When we talk about tech centers, a lot of people think about youth always, but our audience, our target audience, actually, it includes youth, but we're really talking about adult populations. That's our biggest opportunity in our state for workforce. Those are people who have already graduated from high school and they're work ready now. They're not in school. So they're looking for work. They're looking for a career, and it makes up about, I'm going to say 40% of our population that has no degree or credential of any sort. They say 50%, but I'm guessing a lot of people have credentials or training that are not being counted. So, if you don't have a career and you're interested in a career, short-term credentials are a really good way to start out. But it makes sense to have some stackable path that Vin described, where you can actually get credit for that short-term learning as well. So
the other trend we're beginning to see, just again, based on the labor market, is employers are beginning to be much more creative around scheduling. So for that single mom, they're saying, yeah, it's cool if you roll in at 10 and leave at 2. We're all right with that. We'll take you for the 4 hours, and we'll work it out. And maybe you come in on the weekend to give us a few hours, or whatever the case may be. So we're seeing a lot more flexibility on the part of employers around being creative around schedules to support workers. We talk to candidates right now. If there was ever a time to look for a job, it is right now, because employers are willing to pay a premium, they're willing to train you, they're willing to bring you on, and they're willing to treat you really well because they need you desperately. Mm-hmm. And this market won't last forever. Although if you look at Vermont's demographic and Molly's right, it doesn't look good if you look further down the road either. But this is a critical piece. So
actually, I've had some discussions with the manufacturing industry, and we had 36 employers together, and they said that they felt like the most important thing to hiring right now was flexibility. So that takes precedence over pay. If you can offer a flexible schedule, then people are willing to take that over the pay. Now, I'm just going to put out there, pay can be a disqualifier, if your pay is that low. So you want to have it in the market, but it's really important to people. They've figured it out, and they're in control.
Very much so, right? I mean, people have realized through the pandemic, they suddenly realized, wait a minute, there is such a thing as work-life balance. I think I discovered it. Now I just have to figure out how to make it work. Well, that's what I think employers need to figure out, is how to make it work as well.
Well, when we talk about flexibility, some people can't move here because they can't find a house. There's that. You don't have to move here, and you can still work for us. It becomes harder to retain people like that because they miss out on the engagement part. But
so I will say, it's also interesting. We've had some recent conversations with some larger employers who are actually talking about purchasing housing for their employees, purchasing a building or an apartment building and giving their employees a place to live. That's how crazy it's gotten. That employers are actually at that place where they're talking about purchasing I never thought I would hear that coming from an employer, but in fact, they're looking at it and saying, you know what? If we don't have a place for our workers to live, we don't have workers. So it harkens back to the old models of employment, right? Where you took somebody with maybe a high school education, maybe not, you upskilled them and trained them. The machine tool industry in Springfield, great example, right? You could come out of high school, not even a high school graduate, and support a family because you were trained and brought into that industry and you made a pretty good wage. And I think that's, employers are coming back to that again. And you think about the old company store and the company apartment building, and the company used to kind of own the town. Well, in a way, these companies begin to think, maybe we should do that again. Maybe we should be supporting our employees in a different way here. Because I'll tell you right now, the two common themes we hear across the board that are keeping people from going to full-time employment is housing and childcare, affordable access to childcare. Is just it's dragging our whole system down. There are many families we know who are sitting down and deciding who stays home with the kids because you just can't afford. If you have 2 under the age of 3, forget it. You're shelling out $600 a week. It's crazy. So that's a bit of a soapbox. My apologies.
The Department of Labor has a team of people in your region, both or St. Johnsbury or Newport, that are really there to help you with a lot of those things in a partnership role. So, we have labor market information to help you set wage rates, and we have job descriptions and those kinds of things to kind of get you started in, if you do need to recruit. and then certainly support through the recruitment process. But we can help you connect to programs that are available, things that are going on at Northern Vermont University or Vermont Tech or the local technical education center. So I guess I would just say, a good first starting place, if you're feeling like you really need some support around HR, would be your local Department of Labor office. And we can, I know that information is available through the collaborative, but it's certainly available at our website as well.
All the things we've been discussing, the OJT model, work experiences, job shadows, that's for any size employer. We can do one-offs with a very small employer. We can do an OJT with and sometimes that's for the small employers, that's a home run because they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, and they will have to take somebody aside to train that new worker. So there's a cost associated with that. We can offset that cost for a small employer just as easily as we can for a large employer. And we do it all the time.
Ultimately, we want to create paying internship opportunities for our students because we don't want them to do work and not be paid for it. No one does, no matter how old you are, because there's a lot of great small businesses around here that could use some youthful, experienced students that have marketing experience, communication experience that can help your business grow. It's just finding the needs of the small businesses, collaborating with our faculty to offer these and to highlight these to our students so they can have a chance to work that could potentially, if your business growth along with the student, could lead to a position for them upon graduation. I actually wouldn't mind jumping in first. I'm one of those examples. I left my job in May to accept this job in Vermont. I'm from Delaware. It's money and opportunity. I was stagnant. I wanted a change. I gave my previous employer a not necessarily an ultimatum, but I felt I was being extorted, and COVID helped shed my light of that. To shed some light on that and to better understand that you deserve more. You deserve more than what you have. I earned a master's degree, never even was offered more money or a new role in my job for 6-7 months after getting it. I wasn't begging for it, but it was always alluded to that hard you work, this is what you get. But it wasn't the case in my previous role. I was offered this amazing opportunity. I accepted it, came up here. Great decision. I still don't regret it at all.
Well, I just want to say welcome to Vermont, Vin. Geez, I didn't realize you're a newbie. Welcome aboard, and I hope you got snow tires.
I'm on the Vermont State Teachers Retirement Board as a trustee. And in one of our meetings, someone said, well, what if you decide you want to make less money, so you go to the Northeast Kingdom to work? And that as a community, we need to look at that because we could lose people from one side of Vermont to the other. I know that, it's true for teaching. If you're a teacher in the Northeast Kingdom and you want to make more, you can just move over to the Burlington area. So I think that's going to cause a greater issue with the Great Resignation in our area than maybe in all of Vermont, if that makes sense.
Everybody needs workers, and you need to throw out lines everywhere. So, job link that they described, yes. There's another state program called Think Vermont, and that's another one, yes. I would be putting out all sources of support that we can get. So Think Vermont is the Agency of Commerce. They go out, if you give them permission, they'll go out to your website and just pull the jobs that are on your website every day. And then they'll post those, help expand the reach for outside of Vermont. It doesn't change the housing situation here, but you might get more reach from people outside of the state. Every resource that we have available, I think, is important to the employers today.
And I'll just put in a plug for something the collaborative has built and is building. Actually, Thor is the one who's doing most of the work on it right now, is NEK Strong. And if you haven't visited that or are not aware of that, it's a resource hub for the collaborative where if you have employment needs or are actually looking for a job, that's one of the things that it does. So it's NEK Strong. I think there's a link on the collaborative website for it.
Right. So apprenticeship what these guys are describing is a lot of funding comes for the training portion of apprenticeship. So sometimes the apprenticeships are completely funded. So if you have people who are in them, and they're your employees, because you have to hire them in order for them to be an apprentice, you would theoretically give them release time to get the education, but that's your cost, is their release time, so that they can get the training. And the level of education and the benefit of building your own workforce and investing in that becomes the retention that you get because of it. And we're trying to put together this sustainable model, which says even if those apprenticeship dollars don't exist anymore, employers can pay back, can afford to pay for this using their tuition assistance dollars if they have that type of setup. So I'm just going to say that sounds like it's out of reach for a lot of small businesses, but it's really not. What they've done so this is like in theory and in practice, right? In theory, you're creating a fund and you're actually paying yourself back with this loan repayment. You have to make an initial investment, but you're paying the loan back to yourself. If the person leaves your organization, they assume the loan. This is a VSAC model. And so it's sustainable and it's a pot of money. You end up paying basically the interest on it. But it's your own pot of money. And so if you have the capability to do that, or if we had a group of employers who wanted to do that, we could think about ways to finance it that are sustainable, even without apprenticeship funding. Right now, there's never been more money for education. So that's not our issue today.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this, Miriam, because really, and this is what I was trying to get at, we can be pretty creative, particularly with the state dollars. So federal dollars are pretty prescriptive. They tell us what to do with it, how to spend it, that whole thing. But a good example, this year, we got $2 million in state money to support apprenticeship expansion and just apprenticeship work in general. And we've been using some of that, Aaron, to support some of the St. Johnsbury students in the electrical and plumbing apprenticeships. So we've been using some of those dollars to offset their tuition costs. You may know of that. That's just a matter of having a conversation about what do we need and how do we get there. What we're really trying to, our boss, Sarah Buxton, always says, I just want to know how to get to yes. And I think that's how we're approaching it with businesses. Let's figure out how to get to yes. We can be pretty creative in all the different tools we have and the things that we can bring to bear. But at the end of the day, you've got to have, and again, I keep repeating this, but it's very important. You got to have the employers at the table, all willing to raise their hands and say, I'm in. I'm in on this and I'm going to participate and I'm going to support, whether it's apprentices or interns or young people doing job shadows and work experiences, whatever the case may be. You got to have the employers standing up and saying, yep, I'm in. I see this as a worthwhile investment and I'm going to put time and energy into it.